places. Here in Talladega, living in Akron, Ohio.
Right.
So, I don't know where we can start. How about before you moved away? Before you moved away from Talladega, could you tell me something about your early memories?
Well, before I moved, I was born in Little and then my father, he worked at Talladega College. And so mother stayed in Middleville before I was born. Then after I was born, we moved to Talladega. And we didn't really have a place to stay. It's me and my father and my mother. So we stayed in the Crookshank house, the house on Palace Street.
Okay.
Well, we stayed there for about, I think that was about maybe four or five. And then we moved to the house he built on College Street.
Okay.
Yeah. And after that, my brothers and sisters started falling in. It was 8 of us.
Okay. You're the oldest.
I'm the oldest, right.
Okay.
And so, and after that, we had a lady who stayed with us. Her name was Miss Emma Taylor. Because my mother and father, they worked all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to hire somebody to take care of us.
Uh-huh.
So he hired Miss Emma Taylor, which we call her auntie, and Miss Taylor. But she raised all of us because my mother and father worked, all the time. And as we grew up, she was so used to us, and we loved her so much. She was a beautiful lady. And because during that time, her parents were slaves. During that time, she was old, and at that time she was around about 70.
So she was about 70
She was up in age, yes.
And her parents were slaves. Wow.
And so we my brothers, my sister, we all started going to school at West Side.
Oh.
And after we started going to school, she stayed there till 19, I think it was 55, I believe. Because I left at 55.
How old were you when you left?
11 years old.
You were 11 years old.
11 years old. Right.
You moved to Akron, Ohio.
Right. I stayed with two relatives, my two aunts.
How come you did that?
Well, I really don't know. I don't understand it myself. But they raised me in Akron. That was my family.
Okay.
And after I got to Akron, and I left Alabama, I knew the circumstances within Alabama, that different way we lived. So when I got to Akron, it's night. And the morning we got up, well, I went on the porch. And the first thing I saw was a white man.
A white man in your neighborhood?
In my neighborhood. Well, I didn't know it was my neighborhood or not. I thought it was over there,
You did, yes.
And I went to try to see the white man. I said, well, baby, he stayed next door.
He's your neighbor.
I said, what do you mean he stayed next door? He says, where he lived. And I got to puzzle myself, now, we couldn't do that in the South. Some parts probably could. I don't know. And as time went on, my neighbor, my best friend, I first got to her name was Kenny. And we started talking to each other. He asked me where I'm from. I couldn't say Talladega. I said Birmingham.
You didn't want to say Talladega.
I didn't want to say Talladega. Birmingham.
You'll be from a big city.
And so he said, Birmingham. Yes, Mom said, no, baby, tell me Talladega, Alabama. And so as we started playing around, he got a little thing he used to call me. I'm going to say this. He said, oh, you from Talladega? I said, yeah. Oh, you the nigga from Talladega. I said, oh, man. And I didn't think no more of it. The kids.
And he was a grown-up?
No, he was the same age.
He was your age?
Yeah.
Okay, Clinty was your friend.
My best friend, the first friend I met when I got to Akron. He was the best friend. He lived next door to me.
Okay.
And so as I went on, it was time to go to school. Well, I didn't know what school he went to. So my aunt had to take me downtown to the courthouse to get me adopted so I could get Social Security number.
Okay.
But my Social Security number is 288, where a lot of the four short fours.
Uh-huh.
So when I got the Social Security number, went on to school, resident school. So I was sitting up in the house with my aunt to come. She took off work to take me to school that morning, first time. So we walked to school, which wasn't too far to walk, because I think all the kids walked. Well, when I got to it, I looked up at the biggest school I've ever seen in my life. For being a child, when I went to. So when she took me inside, they was already in class. Well, she knocked on the door. And when she knocked on the door, that was the tallest white man I ever seen in my life. And he looked down at me, and I looked up at him. And I got behind my aunt again. And I told her, we're in the wrong school. She said, we're in the right school. This is Grace Elementary. I said, okay. And so the principal said, how you doing, young man? I said, all right. He shook my hand and took my hand back. Because the way things was going on. So he said, well, I'm going to get a monitor to take you to class. And I said, what is a monitor? That's what a monitor was. I know we have people outside the class taking it with him. So I looked up. The little white girl come down the hallway. She had on a yellow, I guess it was like a yellow belt.
Oh, because she was a monitor.
Monitor, right. And plus she held the flag.
That was like a uniform
right.
or something.
And plus she held the flag to stop the kids when they go home.
Okay.
Stop the cars on the street.
Yeah.
She come down there, she grabbed my hand, I took my hand in the glove. I got behind my arm again. I said, no, I'm not going. She said, oh yeah, you going. I said, no, I'm not. Yeah, you going. So she took me to the 4th floor. They were my classmates. And when I got in there, the principal opened the door. And I looked in there, I was surprised to see it was different. Different colored people in there, black and white.
There were black and white
Then
students.
I looked over the corner, there was my best friend. He was sitting
Well, there was Clemmy.
That was Clemmy.
Wonderful.
And I didn't know he was in that class. And her name was Miss Hennigan. This short name. I don't know if you ever know her name was Miss Hennigan. And she was just as sweet. She told me, come on in. And I come in, I looked around, everybody just looking at me. Finally, she let me sit down. And they asked me where I'm from. I told them Birmingham. And I finally, Clemmy said, no, Talladega, Alabama. So she put it up on the map. There it is right there. So, and after that, well, we started playing together, going to school, and it was normal. For them, but not for me.
Not for you.
Right. And after school, everybody was going home. We walked. Really, where I lived, a lot of kids walking home. There were no buses where I was, unless they busted me another cross town. But they lived in West Akron. Usually went to Grace or Thorne or West Side or West High. And we were walking home that time. And during that time, there was integration and segregation. So we were walking down the street, a bunch of us, and we were singing 2, 4, 6, 8. We want to segregate. And we kept singing loud, clapping our hands. And this lady stopped us and said, no, no, no. 2, 4, 6, 8, you want to integrate. We didn't know what it meant.
It just rhymed.
It just rhymed. And so after we started singing it, that was it.
How about that? What year was this?
This is 55.
55. Wow. You must have really had culture shock.
It was, because I've never been in this area. I could get on the front of the bus, go downtown. I go in the store I want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I could go to the movies and sit anywhere I want to sit. We had stores, and we had most of the stores everywhere, but Italian stores in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I could go in there and get whatever. Nobody said nothing. I went to the dairy, but nobody said nothing. I went anywhere I wanted to, downtown, ride a bike. Nobody said a word.
It wasn't like that in Talladega.
No, ma'am.
When you were living in Talladega.
You live across town, we live on this side of the track. But it was a wonderful experience because now I know that there was people who cared about you. only three that you didn't know. And I'm not story reflects on the South, but as a child, to me, I was in heaven.
I bet you were.
I was in the holy heaven because I went to it's just like you go to a toy store and you see all the toys and you showing which one to get. That's the way I felt. That's the way I felt.
That is a beautiful story. How long did you stay in Akron?
Oh, about 20 years till I went in service. I got drafted
Well,
I was in Ohio. I got drafted in Ohio. I said I got drafted. I had to come back to Alabama. And I went to the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay. So when you got your draft notice,
I had to come back to
you had to come back to
Right.
Talladega, Alabama.
But I had already got got just to the door.
Ooh, how did it feel when you came back to Talladega? Did you
Well,
have to readjust
I had to readjust in a
how
sense.
people treat
But when I
one
started
another?
coming back and forth as a child, coming back and forth, my mom used to put me on a bus.
Oh
Greyhound
yes, that's right. Yeah.
bus. Yeah, she put me on a Greyhound bus and it had the bus. In other words, I was just about on my own. But as we got on the bus, I got on the front of the bus in Akron. Right? Got to Cincinnati, Ohio. Before we crossed the Mason, we called it the Mason-Dixon line.
That's the basic.
We had to go to the back.
Yeah.
And first time I traveled, I didn't understand that.
Didn't make any sense.
It makes no sense to me. How come I paid, but I got to ride back? Because see, I wasn't exposed to a lot of things during the time I was in Ohio, but I was exposed to a lot of things in Alabama.
Yes.
But Alabama, to me, was my home. And I always said, how come my home can't be like that? Why can't the people be like the people there? But that wasn't about the people. But sometimes I'd cry when I'd be going home, I would cry. And I used to stop in Tennessee and different places like that by myself, going to the station, the Talladega bus. And I used to ride, when I was going on a train, I used to meet a lot of people, black and white. And I met some children one time, they were going to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Well, I got to play with those kids. I missed my stuff.
Oh, you missed your stop.
Yeah. So I had to get back on another bus to get back to Tennessee, so I could get back to Memphis, so I could get back to on the trip to Birmingham. So when I got off the bus that evening, I accidentally, I don't know if I saw it or I didn't see it, went into the white waiting room,
Oops.
which I didn't know I was in there.
Oh boy.
And as I was sitting, I noticed it was like a cubicle. And they would put it about, people would look and they put it back. Look, see what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And I could figure out. So about maybe 7 to 8 o'clock, they called Birmingham. So I got my little, so as I getting on the train, about 4 cars pulled up. And all these people, like, they jumped out the car and ran into the waiting room where I was at. Then they come back out. When they came back out, I ducked down in the seat and pulled my shade down and cut the light off. Don't even see me. And I'm pretty sure that somebody had told them that I was in there. And
Yeah,
I'm sure that they were looking for me.
How old were you when that happened?
12.
Well, you must have been pretty
Because I went home
scared.
the year I got there, I went home the next year after the visit. And
Wow.
when I got to Talladega, I was home about maybe, I was going to be for the summer. I couldn't stay. I told my mom, I got to go, I can't stay here. I need to go back to Akron. My father said, no, you're not going back. It's okay. It's Emma Taylor. She got the money. Mama took the bus and I took her.
Somebody got the money to pay for your
My dad
ticket back
Yeah.
to Akron. That is some story.
And like I said, Akron was my home. And I grew up there, went to school up there, graduated up there, worked up there. And it was really, that's all I knew.
4 years.
I had a family, but it's kind of difficult to talk about sometimes. But I've been, like I said, people say, I've been in my home since I was 11 years old, with my home. I had 8 brothers, mom and daddy. So, and then my aunt and them became my family.
Yes.
And the neighborhood became all my family.
Wow.
And so, as I grew up, coming out, stayed a teenager, I did some terrible things. You know, ran around with a few guys and called it the game, but I mean, it was just us. You know, but we didn't bother nobody. You know, but we were more scared of us than we were of anybody else. But the lifestyle at the church, I went down to churches, they were still predominantly black. I don't know why they didn't change that, but then I started going to, I don't know if you ever heard of Oral Roberts, Cathedral of Tomorrow.
I've heard of that.
Right. I was there when they built that church. Oral Roberts, he got a college now. It's called Cathedral of Tomorrow.
Okay.
So that was early in the 50s. And I started going ahead. We started going ahead.
So there were black and white
Yeah.
and other races in Oral Roberts Church.
Oral Roberts,
Cathedral of Tomorrow.
It's a beautiful church. Everyone says it's still up there. And we started going there. So, but every Sunday, I went to church every Sunday. We stayed at church all day. I would love going to church. I used to wait to go Sunday to go to church. But we went to church all day. I sung in the choir, I sung in the King Solomon Quartet. And they stayed next door to me. I was Clipping them family. They were musically inclined. They had their own group. And but as we grew up, Clemmy, he kind of went to the far side. But that was still my friend.
What do you mean, far side? Can you say more about that?
Well, he was
far side.
Kind of got in a lot of trouble.
Oh, I see.
A whole lot of trouble. Breaking hands. He was totally busted. And so as we were growing, my aunt would tell me, she said, "Now, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go to church." She said, "But you love Clinton." I said, "Yes, my buddy." She said, "You stay with Clinton. Just because he's this, he's still your friend." And he was. Matter of fact, sometimes I tried to get in touch with him, I can't hardly find him. And he ended up on the street.
Oh.
Giving on the street for a while.
Sure, that hurt your heart.
Oh man, that got me. That got me.
Wow.
And during the civil rights movement, that was a big thing too. But the way people were looking at it, it wasn't as much enthusiasm up there than it was down here.
Right.
But we saw it on TV. We saw people talk about it. We even had marches in our city. But that too. But it was like it wasn't happening. That's the way I saw it.
It didn't feel like it had
didn't
anything
feel like
to
it
do
was
with
happening
you.
because I wasn't participating in it.
Right.
But I know it worked for me.
Right.
But then I said, now, I want to go down now. I said, I better not even travel down south right now. But the position I was in, I wasn't able to go down there. I was in my world.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But the ministers around there, we kept everything calm and collected. I mean, nobody, when Martin Luther King came on the scene, we watched him, talked about it. But I don't think he ever came to ask me. If he did, I can't recall.
He sure came. He came to Birmingham.
Yeah,
You know that.
Yeah, I know that. Now, Kennedy came through that. John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy.
He passed right by my house. And he,
Well.
but people had the flags out. And I got a chance to see him. I waved at him. You know, he was going toward Barberton, Ohio. Yeah, he came from East Avenue to come down East Avenue.
Right by your house.
Right by.
That is.
We couldn't hardly see him, you know, but we knew it had an
super.
arcade. You know, I mean,
You knew that the president was coming through.
Right.
Gosh, Mr. Collie, this is an amazing
Oh yeah.
story. How old were you when the civil rights era, like
Well, I was around, I was about,
1960s.
11, 12, 13, 14. That's when
Okay.
they started getting from the 50s all the way
Right.
to the 60s. And
Yeah.
the 70s changed. When the Vietnam War, everything kind of changed a little bit. You had the civil rights and the movement and all of them mixed in together like.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't perfect, but was trying to get everything in order. But Akron, they had their little riot, but it didn't last long. But Akron was one of the, I would say, to me, it was one of the greatest cities I ever lived in. Because it was just like everybody knew everybody, even though it was a big city. And then when I was going to, I left Grace Elementary, and we went to West High School, which was 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then in the 9th, you went to South High School, because I moved over to Southeast Avenue. It was on East Avenue.
Most of your education was in
There,
Akron.
yeah, right. And, but I just go back to my living time back when I was, back in the 50s and 60s. And you think about people saying that you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. But I did a lot that I couldn't do for education-wise. And the street, like I said, the street we stayed on, it wasn't too many, I would say, black neighborhoods. It was neighborhoods, but but I was kind of like spread it out, everybody. But when I first moved to Akron, my neighborhood was a beautiful neighborhood. I mean, we had the cobblestone.
Cobblestone streets?
Yeah, the
Oh, my
cobblestone
goodness.
streets. All around the cobblestone street, they were beautiful. Only thing about it, when it snowed, you better just slide on it.
Yeah.
You would slide on cobblestone. And I lived on Livingston, which is called Livingston Street, right behind the General Hospital. One of the biggest hospitals in Akron. The General Hospital, I stayed right behind. And down this side of the street was mostly Italian.
Uh-huh.
And up Exchange Street, Wabash, was mostly Jews. So, and the stores in the area was a Jewish store with Thaddeus. I forget his name. She had a store in the corner, right next to the dairy queen.
Oh.
But she was one of the sweetest ladies that I ever met.
Did you ever, when you came back to Talladega to visit, did you ever tell your brothers and sisters or anybody knew how life was for you in Akron?
Yeah.
Did they
Some
believe
some
you?
did.
Some of them didn't believe you. I can understand why they just would think you were telling them a story.
You kind of put it back and say, well, just because you was up there don't mean it. I said, look, as I grew up, I knew how it was. I said, everybody wasn't perfect. But because I stayed there, I mean, all of it was just the same. There was some Jim Crows up there. There was a lot of hatred up there, sure. But I didn't see it. Because there was a lot of times when people were acting with the rubber capital of the world, Goodyear, Firestone, all the people worked at Goodyear. Most black and white blended together. So they didn't want to destroy.
They didn't want to mess up the
whole system. Right.
good system that was working.
A majority of people there worked at all those tire companies. And that was the money right then. Then we had the Quaker Oak. The big Quaker Oak.
That's right. I knew about that.
Yeah. Then they had I don't remember, the soapbox derby.
Is that the soapbox derby started in
That's where Akron.
Never forget, my older brother made himself a soapbox derby car.
Yeah.
And we lived in Bessemer, Alabama, so we didn't know that. I didn't know the idea came from.
Yeah.
Akron started, the whole thing started in Akron.
That was a big thing in the summertime. All the stars came. The first time I saw Roy Wright, Day 11. A lot of people don't remember Roy Wright, Day 11.
I do.
Range and all that.
But I'm about your age. I remember them.
Yeah, they came to the...
Happy trails to you.
to the soapbox derby.
Did they bring Trigger?
They brought Trigger.
Good.
And Dale's horse
Well, the Trigger was his horse.
was his
Remember?
horse. Right.
Let's see.
Buttermilk was
Buttermilk was
Dale's horse.
yeah, Dale's. That's right.
Right. And we really, that was a big day in that soapbox derby. That was a great day. And we used to go, like when I went to the Quaker Oats, they give you a sample, you know. And smell, when you go downtown, you can smell the oats and smell it now.
Wow.
But if you go further on the east side, probably it was east side, southeast, that's where the capital of the most of the tire plants was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all over, you know. Then they had a place called Portage Lake, which is a park where the beaches, stuff like that.
Oh my
You can
goodness.
go to it too.
And, you know, I'm guessing from what you said that, you know, black and white citizens and families could, you know, everybody just went to the same.
Same thing, yeah.
Well, that was different from the
And
South.
it
where I grew up.
was nice. And things started changing. During the civil rights movement started changing. And I could see a lot of change in a lot of people. To be honest with you, I really, the only thing that changed me was when Emmett Till got killed.
I think that's one of the worst things I have ever heard in my life. What happened to that young man, that boy, that kid, somebody's child.
We couldn't believe it.
But go back, when you said in the civil rights movement, things started changing in Akron.
It started changing.
Say more about that.
It started changing. It looked to me like things started going, instead of going kind of uphill, it kind of started going downhill a bit.
Oh.
That went to people.
You think people started becoming less friendly and tolerant of each other?
Yes, because it's what you learn, how you teach people, to me. And I really didn't get into it, so I didn't focus on it. A lot of we was young then, we didn't, it wasn't us. But I knew my family was down there, I was concerned about my family.
Yes.
And, but my father during that time, he was a plumber, electrician.
That he worked in, was he self-employed in Talladega?
Yeah, Talladega. Like I say, he the only work he ever done was Talladega College. He retired from Talladega College.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
And he did a lot of stuff for people. He was there. My father was at the college when World War, they burned Pearl Harbor. But they had some teachers up there. He had to hire some, and he had Germans up there. He had to hire some that was teaching at the college. And then the Klan used to walk through the college.
I've seen pictures of the Klan in Talladega. I have.
Yeah. The first time I ever saw him, personally, me and my brother and sister sitting on the porch. And there's a man always with his wife. And so one day we was in out there, we shoot marbles. And I we looked up, I said, look at all them sheep. There was that one bunch on the hill, Bell Street. And my godmother said, baby, y'all going in the house.
Right now.
Right now. I said, oh, and she said, no, we got down. So we come on in, she closed the door. About an hour later, they left. I don't know why they was up there or what they were doing up there on the hill, but they left. And that was my fear, the Ku Klux, especially when I was trapped.
And that is a reasonable fear.
That's when I was trapped. And just to see the station divided, the black station and the white station.
Yes.
In Akron, it was only one station.
Only one waiting room.
One way. And that was the difference in all that.
Well, when you were a grown man, did you relocate here to Talladega?
The only reason I come back to Talladega, I got drafted.
Yeah, okay, but after that, after you were did you go to Vietnam?
No, I didn't. I was sent to go.
But
I was-
you live in Talladega now. How long have you lived here since
I've
you don't
come-
live in Akron anymore?
Now I come back here in 1970 after I got out of service.
I see.
I was getting ready to leave again. I was going to California. The guy had got us a job in California. I was going to California. And messed around there and met my wife.
You met a girl from Talladega.
And after that, we was talking, and the first time I met her, I was on leave.
Oh.
And I was sitting down, I think it was a club I was in, she bought me a beer. I forgot about it. So when I come back, I met her again. And she asked me about the party. I said, I don't know about the party. I left it at again. Third time I met her, I walked her home.
Oh.
And I put a phone number in my hand. It was hot. I'll blow my hand because it was so hot.
You didn't want to sweat. You didn't want to sweat her number off.
So I knew it. All I do is look at the phone book.
No, you wanted to keep it in the palm of your hand.
And we were together for about maybe not less than a month. And we were married 53 years. She passed away last year. See, yeah, last year.
Oh.
She was a beautiful person, I tell you.
She must have been.
And she worked at for the city. She worked at the rec center. Her name was Teresa.
She worked at the rec center.
Rec center. She worked at
Spring Street Rec Center.
Then she worked at Jemison.
Oh.
And she worked at Brigham. And she retired from there.
I probably saw her.
You probably saw her.
Taking my children to
Back and
the
forth.
rec center.
Yeah, they love
whatever.
Teresa. They love Teresa. And
Well.
she died in 2010. And she got Alzheimer's. And
Ooh, sounds like you all had a very, very good, loving life
we have
together.
one son, Trump Michael, he just retired out of service during the COVID time.
Mm.
And I was blessed to have him as my son because we raised him in a way that he, with child to go, but although we couldn't be with him all the time, you don't know what he was doing. But the military changed his life.
Really?
He made a better man.
Ah,
He made a better man. Proud of him.
now where's Michael now?
Michael's in Kentucky.
He went to Kentucky.
He's married, and he's married to a girl from Jamaica. He's been married. He's kind of privileged. He's been married twice.
Well,
But the point is
it's
that
not the only
it
one.
took that to get where he is now. And I guess his mama did more to raise it than I did. Because I worked at night and all that. She did more to take care of him. And I think I go back to when I was a child. And I had a father, but I didn't have a father. I had a mother, but I didn't have a mother. So,
Pretty unusual.
out of all those years, I stayed with my mother and father 12 years. 11 years. I spent with them. Which, we didn't say how much, but I spent with them. But after that, that was it. And when people say, I can understand when people, but the kids don't have fathers, not that their father left. It's a different thing when you leave.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave the home nest, when you go away from your siblings and your mother and your father, that's the most questionable thing I always wonder why. But I thank God did it because look where I am now. What if he had not taken me away? What if he had not left me here? What would happen? I don't know. But I do know this. It's up to God to prove me what he would do. But if I had stayed, I don't know if I'd have been dead or what. I don't know.
We can't know that.
I can't tell you why, but it made me a better man. I know I've been through different things in my life, but I'm still thinking, why? And he took it to the grave. I don't know.
I can't imagine. I used to be really smart, Mr. Collie, when I was young. now I'm not very smart at all. But I think you do right to keep wondering, to keep being open, and just to be able to receive whatever you can that will help you.
Right. When I was traveling back and forth, I remember one time I got on the bus, and I got there. I think it was before you get to Birmingham. That's been called a city. This white man got on the bus. Well, back then, we was divided.
Yes, I remember that.
With one seat left. And I'm sitting there minding my own business, like a child should do, and there are people around me. He's sitting next to me. Turned around, looked at me and said, you look like that nigga used to work with my daddy. And I couldn't say nothing because I better not have said nothing. And I looked around, other people they turned their heads, they didn't mind saying nothing. I'm by myself here. Nobody else. And I was scared. By that time, the bus driver stopped. I heard the bus stop. He come up. He said, Mr. You. He said, what you want with me? He said, I want you to get off my bus. He said, no, I paid for this trip. He said, no, you get on my bus now. He walked to the door. He come back and said, and you? I said, uh-oh. Guess I got to go too. The young man, I want you to do something. Come up here with me. Here was the seat. Was where too many people sit. But I don't think too many like the bus driver, too many people sit really behind him. He said, me and you? Yes, sir. You want to come here? What
a good man.
If I don't know him then,
he did the right thing.
He really shocked me. He shocked a lot. Because when I was sitting on the front, everybody was like this. The mouth went. I said, why y'all say something back there when I was back there when the man was talking to you? Why didn't you open your mouth back there? To myself. Yeah.
Sounds like the man wasn't being very nice to this young boy. And people around didn't want to get involved, or maybe they didn't want to be. Right.
He told me, you take care of yourself. I said, yes, sir. And he shook my hand.
You had a good life, Mr. Collie. You had so many good things that happened to you that didn't happen to a lot of people. I think I'm just so impressed by the good people who came into your life, who showed you, just lived it before you, how we are meant to live our lives together.
But I thank God fixed it. Where it's not the individual, it's the heart. I mean, I can sit here and talk to you all day long. And when you get outside and get mad, you can call you all kind of names. But the point is that people don't realize, if you haven't been through a fire, you don't know what it is to be burned. If you haven't been through the fire.
You don't know what it is to be burned. Yes. That's wisdom.
I've been through the fire. And I was burned in a lot of ways. I was coming up the street in Akron one evening. Went to the store on my bicycle, having got that lead. The little white boy, he ran out the door at his apartment house. And when he ran out, my bike hit him. Boom! It just almost knocked the teeth out of him. But it almost broke my handball. I mean, not handball, it bent the handball tried to twist. And his mother come down the steps. She hit me so hard. slapped me so hard that I fell over my bike. And when I got up, I had my head down. The man who owned the apartment saw it. He come up to where I was, helped me pick my bike up. And he looked at me and said, "Ma'am, you had no business slapping that young man." He said, "Why did you?" He hit me. I said, "No, he didn't." I saw that child been running up and down the street all day. I saw when he come down the steps, he ran right into the bike. And I went on home. I sit there on my steps, and I cried like a baby. I told my aunt, and she said, "That's all right, it'll be all right." Let me come out there where I was. Let's get him. I said, no. It was Clemmy, the little white friend of mine named Joey, his brother Frankie. It was Junior Walker. All of them, we sitting on the steps, trying to figure out what we're going to do. Y'all, I ain't doing that. I was just crying. But the next day, I don't know what happened. We saw smoke coming out. Evidently, she left something on the stove. In the front apartment in the shop.
Oh.
Then they moved. So,
what a story.
I didn't have to do nothing.
Interesting.
I didn't want nothing to happen to her.
Of course not.
But fate itself stepped in the picture. You might can do some things in your life and it's not right. 50 years later, you can be sitting down eating breakfast. Somebody knock at your door. Because it's all predestined that you might get by, but you would not get away. Somehow, the thing is, I didn't want nothing to happen to her, but I'm not saying God fixed it for her.
No.
But like I said, when we're in a life where now, God has already done fixed everything. He fixed me back there when I left home. He knew I was going to be right here today. I didn't know it. This is my destination. So I wrote a poem called The Bridge. And on this bridge I wrote, there's a bridge that was not built by hand, by man, built by God. And on that bridge, we're running. People don't see it like that. I see things people don't see. When you're on that bridge, how far will you go on that bridge? Where is your destination on that bridge? And that's when people leave the world, I say, that's it. They went to their destination on that bridge. They can't go no further. That's it. That's the end of the bridge.
That sounds like a very beautiful and very deep poem. I hope you have a copy of it.
I got a copy of that.
I would love to see it sometime.
I think it's different than other people say. When I was a little boy, it was raining. I was riding my bicycle. I cursed God. Why you let me rain? It started to rain. I got on that bicycle, coming down here, doggone and run to the telephone pole. I mean, I hit it. And I said what I said. I would never, as long as I live, do that no more, God. I said, forgive me. I raised my hand, forgive me. I hit that pole.
Mr. Collie.
And I thought about it. I said, oh man, what did I say? I should have said that. I want to ride my bicycle.
Is Talladega doing any better now about, treating people fairly? Are white people nicer to black people now than they were when you were a kid?
Yes, I feel like they are, in a sense.
I'm glad.
I feel like they are, in a sense. But, if you look at it at a standpoint, we still got the growing to do.
Yes.
Although it's been all those years, there's no place perfect, but you still got some growing to do. An obligation to make it fair for everybody.
Oh, yes.
So, I can't compare Akron with Talladega then, but I live here.
Yes.
I retired here.
Yes.
And every so often, I roll back to what it was, to what it is now. And from 1 to 10, I have to give it 6.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Talladega is a 6
It's a
now
6.
instead of a 1.
A 1, right.
Good.
I mean, that
Well,
was a
that's
nice city.
good. Well,
We got a lot of,
when you spoke of the bridge, you know, we're on a bridge, we're crossing a bridge, we're on a journey. I hope, I don't know, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I hope that you might say that maybe we, the citizens of Talladega, the community is a little further across the bridge than we were
a whole lot.
when you and I were kids.
Right, a whole lot. But
Yeah.
like I say, you still traveling.
We're still traveling.
Traveling on that bridge. And
We're still traveling.
Until we all come together at the end.
That's right.
We can't be separated. If you got a bridge, like I said, I got that bridge, narrow,
Exactly.
and you can't dive, you have to be on the same.
We're all on the same bridge. we
That's
we
right.
have to.
And you can't turn back.
No.
That's one thing about the bridge that God built. You cannot turn back. Your future is ahead. So this is all right.
Well,
Now if I had a chance to live in Talladega, I probably would take Talladega.
Talladega today.
Yeah. Although Akron is a little bit ahead.
Mhm.
But because I believe if I stayed in my own home, maybe I could help grow the bridge.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe I could help.
We need you. That's really another way of saying why we are trying to do this story project. We need your help. We need you to be here among us. We need your heart. We need your words of wisdom to help influence and instruct others who need it, be they young or old.
Yeah.
As you and I know, we're getting older, but we're still learning. We are still learning. We're still on the journey. And you have a part in it. Your story has a vital part. We thank you so much.
Okay.